So, Escape Plan 3, or Escape Plan the Extractors if you like. The movie starts with an introduction to the city of Mansfield in Ohio, and then they show loads of shit that has absolutely no relevance at any point in the film whatsoever. I suppose there's a very small bit of relevance a little later on, but I'll get to that later. It's like they're trying to show a city that's full of hard workers and is a little down on its luck, but fucking why? This isn't a film about a kid who has to learn the hard way that to make it to the top you gotta work hard and suck a lot of dicks, so why give the impression that it is? Then there's this guy who looks about as confused as a 13-year-old who's just discovered that piss isn't the only thing that comes out of his dick, and he's looking at an Air Force recruitment billboard. It cuts back to him and then he nods like, ah fuck it, it's worth a shot. And again, why is this in this movie? We then see some old guys playing dominoes and the twin cocks of Mansfield. Next we meet Bao, a bodyguard with acute paranoia who's overseeing the meeting of Daya, the daughter of Japanese Elon Musk, and some real estate knobs who are trying to sell Daya an industrial space for development. Bao tells Daya that Daddy would disapprove, to which Daya tells Bao to fuck off. She then video calls her dad, and this is where the smallest amount of relevance of the intro comes into play. She says,
"The people here lost it all. They really want to work, you can see it in their eyes."
That's like the only bit which kind of links the two together, but whatever. Wu, Daya's dad, tells Daya to fuck off for a minute whilst Daddy does some real business. And then some guy comes in with a tablet to show Wu Escape Plan 2, the escapening. I mean, I'm sure Wu knows what the prison he spent billions on building looks like. Why is this tool showing him like he's a fucking invalid in a care home? It's almost like it's for the benefit of the viewer who had the good fortune of not seeing Escape Plan 2, but nah. And another thing, why would someone buy another one of these? Yeah, I'm sure it works well most of the time, but the last one ultimately failed, and why in a fucking desert? I mean, it's remote and all that, but what about the water, the electricity, the food? My guess is that someone just thought it sounded cool. Then he just pulls a figure out of his bum without doing any kind of cost for building a prison in the desert.
$100 billion.
But I'm sure 12 billion is enough. Back in Mansfield with Bao, Daya and the Tweedle Cockwits, we carry on with the video call where Daya tells Wu that they could exploit the American workforce to increase their profits, or words to that effect.
Bringing jobs into America will help our worldwide brand.
And then she says she wants to do it even though Wu disapproves. They've obviously cut the audio in post, but they didn't bother to reshoot the scene, and so Daya's head keeps twitching after she's finished talking, and even in the selfie FaceTime bit you can see she's still talking.
I really want to do this. I really want to do this.
Good job, Escape Plan. Daya then returns to the airport with her team of people who she apparently didn't need when carrying out, I'm assuming, a multi-million-dollar real estate deal, but they're not quite shit enough to leave at home. The mayor of Mansfield also travels with them to the airport, and Daya addresses him as Mr. Mayor, so either the mayor's surname is Mayor, or apparently Daya doesn't give two toots of an arsehole what people's names are and instead addresses them by their job title. Or is that just some kind of weird respect thing that I just don't get? Daya starts talking to her friend or manservant or whatever the fuck he is about how her dad booted the last bodyguard, Shen, out because he kept getting the boners on duty over his daughter, and I guess he was like, nah, that bitch is mine. She tells him that Shen didn't do anything wrong but love her, which is... Bao's shit's about to go south senses start tingling and he starts eyeing up everyone like a horny homosexual at a gay bar. Bao's tits up sense is going to hyperdrive, and then he starts beating the shit out of all the overall boys, and then overall boy pulls a gun on Bao, which I suppose would have made sense to do a lot earlier, but gotta get the fight scene in, I guess. Then Big Blue comes out of nowhere and bobs Bao on the noodle. Bodyguard 2 thinks that now would be the best time to pull his gun, which is quite possibly the dumbest fuck move you could make at this point, but... drama. I might also add here that the effects here are pretty bad, and I actually stand corrected on the dumbest fuck move you can make at this point. That award now goes to this dumbass who tries to run to somewhere, and then they kill the pilot who was actually talking to one of the boys in blue earlier. I mean, he looked a bit on edge, but would you not have pissed off whilst you could if the blues were threatening you? Get in the plane, lock it, fly off to fuck knows whereistan? I don't know, maybe not. But him dying doesn't make much sense here, and again, bad effects. And then we get the baddie reveal. Lester Clark Jr. Such a creative name, but I'll get to that in a minute. Lester then sticks a memory stick with Ray Breslin written on it into Bow's pocket. Ooh, cryptic. Over to LA now, where we intercept a conversation between Ray, Mr. Escape Plan himself, and Abigail, Ray's girlfriend, partner, or whatever. Abigail tells Ray that if he can make the secretary proper moist, then he can avoid security altogether. Ray then completely ignores her and gets to explaining to the audience how they're just about to make big steps towards becoming BF and GF like for real, and then he says she snores like a pig and suggests putting a cork in her bum or mouth or some shit, but it's sweet because he's teasing her and now I'm hooked on this couple. Boy, I sure hope nothing bad happens to Abigail. I feel like I've really got to know her this past 7 seconds. And then Abigail expositions like a motherfucker. I mean, listen to this line.
We need to get that disc and make sure our names aren't tied to your ex-partner's black site activity, and we sleep better.
Yes, the we need to get that disc bit can stay, but what pleb would then say, and make sure our names aren't tied to your ex-partner's black site activity? You just wouldn't say ex-partner, you'd say Lester, because that's what you know him as, for fuck's sake. They might as well just do a flashback scene, but then just play the entire Escape Plan 1 film. It's such a dumb line. Now we meet Shen, you know, the guy that Dyer was on about earlier. He asks to meet with a Mr. Chow, to which the receptionist is an absolute arsehole about. She doesn't even look at him, it's really weird. We get a bit of vocal foreplay, and she eventually calls Chow and tells him that a Chinese man with a briefcase and an umbrella is here to see him. Don't quite know why she felt the need to state what he had with him. Does she do that with everyone? Hi, Mr. Chow? We got ourselves a Punjab with a watermelon and a camel. Shall I send him through? Shen goes and takes a seat, and the secretary starts typing while staring at the back of Shen's head, and again, it's really weird. A load of goons start to enter the waiting room with Shen, more goons come in, and then a female goon also enters the room. How progressive. She says, sir, and then he smacks her in the tit with his umbrella. I can kind of see why Wu didn't want him around his daughter when he seems so happy beating up women, but anyway, Shen does more tit slapping, and I mean, Shen is obviously good at fighting, but these guys and gal are just so bad, and then there's a hell of a lot of whip whooshing with the umbrella. Shen then intimidates the receptionist with a shit joke, steals her security tag, and beats a couple more plebs up, and gets a disc only to be intercepted by Ray. Ray pulls a gun on Shen and tells him he wants the disc. But Shen's like, but I want it. Anyway, Shen says Ray's name, so Ray's all like, cool, guy knows my name, must be legit, so they agree to watch it together, and if Ray can see that Chow's disc is clean, then Shen can have it. Meanwhile, Bao is being interviewed by the police, who basically tell him, yep, your fault, prick. Then Wu turns up and is all like, yo, who took my daughter, bitch? And Bao's all like, don't know, boss. And then Wu's all like, you have to know, bitch. And then Bao's like, don't, boss. Then Wu says if Bao was a good employee, he'd be dead. And this makes me think that he may be more like the Japanese Jeff Bezos instead, but whatever. Wu then punches Bao, just like Jeff probably would to anyone who says the U word. Workers' Union. The cop tells Bao to stick around because he ain't done with him, but Bao's like, nah mate, got a USB with Breslin's name on it, I'm out. Needless to say, no one even locked the fucking door. They check out the disc and 50p does some typing shit and he says, nah boss, we're all clear. So Shen can now play with Chow's floppy disc for fuck's sake. But not before even more blatant expositional bullshittery. Shen says that Ray had some dodgy dealings with Wu back in the day, and Ray's like, no mate, that was my partner, business partner, because I'm not gay. And then they literally show a scene from Escape Plan 1 of Lester Clark saying something about something. It's so fucking lazy, man. So what is Shen's deal anyway? To be honest, it's a bit of a weak deal if you ask me. The former Zhang head of security, Shen, says that all the tech in the black site prisons is Zhang's. This tech has facilitated the torture and imprisonment of thousands of people, which has made Zhang a lot of cash. I mean, it kind of feels like this whole vendetta thing has come about because Mr. Zhang was a massive cockblock between Shen and Dyer. The only reason he left Zhang was because he was fired because Wu didn't want him near his daughter. So mass torture and false imprisonment would have been okay if he could have kept banging Dyer or what? Anyway, Shen vows to bring Zhang down because it's personal. Not sure how it's personal, but apparently it is. Then Abigail pipes up with,
you want to go after Zhang? Do it yourself.
well, Abigail, you knob, if you'd have listened, he never even asked for your help, so yeah, pointless comment. More lazy expositional bollocks? Then Bao turns up with the USB, and instead of saying, "Hey bud, I've got a memory stick and it's got your name on it," which I'd have laughed at because I have no comedic taste, he says,
"This is for you."
Opportunity missed. He then hands the drive to Ray, and the way he hands it to 20% is weird, don't know why, it just is. On the drive is a threatening message from none other than Lester Clark Jr., the son of, you guessed it, Lester Clark. You see? Such a creative name. It's only at this point that anyone gives a shit about who Bao actually is, and then Shen tells Bao that he's got a bigger dick and that he should be out looking for Dyer. Daddy Breslin breaks up the big dick showdown. They then work out where Lester is from the video. I mean, just watch this shit.
That picture. Daniel in the lion's den.
That's a Persian chapel.
Eastern Orthodox, maybe?
The writing is in Russian.
Yeah, it's probably Eastern Bloc.
What a load of Melissa McCarthy and James Corden movie wrapped into one bullshit. And then we meet Drax, or Trent, a peaky blinder living in Estonia. Ray sends over the video, and Trent, being the tour guide for the grottiest shitholes in Europe, tells him that it's a nice place called Devil's Station. So, as they prepare to set sail to Devil's Station, Ray asks Shen,
"When you said personal, how personal?"
I was very close to Daya. I have to go.
Which now has me really fucking confused. The justification for it being personal is that Shen was really close to Daya and occasionally inside her. Earlier, when Shen said it was personal,
It's personal.
1, he didn't even know Dyer had been kidnapped, and 2, he was referring to taking down Zhang Industries or whatever Daddy Cockblock's company is called. Now, it kind of makes more sense for it to be personal, but now they're actually referring to a different enemy, Lester Clark Jr., instead of Zhang Industries, and yes, I'm sure there's probably some kind of link between the two enemies, but that's like going to an Apple store, pissing on everything, and then thinking you've taken down Apple. It's just a fucking mess. Anyway, over at Devil's Station, Daya and her disciples are paraded around the prison like a bunch of kids on a school trip. Shen and Bao do some more bitching, and Shen tells Bao how big he is.
9mm.
Lester lines the disciples up against a wall, and everyone starts smirking like a bunch of fucktards. Abigail is then kidnapped, and Ray does a shit job of trying to save her. Abigail has time for a few selfies, but I have no idea how they were sent. Was it a mistake? If so, that's a lot of buttons to press in a very precise order to send them by mistake. Did the kidnappers do it? If so, why? If Abigail had been kidnapped, Ray would have known who did it. But again, whatever. Over with Wu at the police station now. So you mean to tell me that this guy has the #1 company in China?
I have the #1 tech company in China.
But he doesn't have a team of people that can sort this kind of shit out. Instead, he's just going to rely on the local authorities. Pfft. Wu then takes a video call from Junior, where he lays out his bad guy motives and tells him that it was $500 million, but now it's 700. When the fuck did he even tell them it was 500 million and give them chance to pay up? And then he shoots someone because Junior don't take no shit. Daya and her crew are then shown their new digs, and Junior says something about loving some sound or some shit.
I love that sound.
Over in Devil's Station again now, and Abigail is just there somehow, way ahead of Ray, which would kind of suggest that Ray has been fucking about since she was kidnapped. He's only just left the office, but yeah. You'd also think that with Abigail being a part of some amazing security firm that she'd be a bit calmer under pressure than she is when they whip the bag off her head, but who am I to get in the way of an attempt at dramatisation? Abigail and Junior talk about some boring stuff, and look who's finally decided to show up. Shen meets Drax and immediately nopes out of there. It's like he was just waiting to be introduced so he could politely tell him to piss off. Turns out that he needed to call Daddy Cockblock to tell him why he is worthy of his daughter's vagina, and he also gives him some tips on negotiating with terrorists. Basically ghost them. He also flicks through some pictures of himself with Daya, and they're just god awful. How fucking cringeworthy would it be to have been the one to take that first photo? Shen just looks like he wants to off himself, which is fair enough. I get what they're trying to do, but it just doesn't work at all, man. Drax and Ray verbally suck each other off for a moment. There's even talk of pulling out.
If you want to pull out, I get it.
But Drax is like, nah man, I'm all in. The scene feels like it should end with Van Diesel bro-fisting everyone whilst talking some shit about family. Back to the Devil's arsehole, and we get a touching moment where Dyer and Friend, this guy, are talking about how they're going to make it. And then discount younger Gary Oldman and some other guy turn up to imply sexy time with female prisoner. High five! Junior arrives to find whoever has some kind of clearance to Zhang's something or other, and there's some obligatory pissing around before BFF says, I do. Neighbour number 2 then says, which reminds me a hell of a lot of a previous scene where virtually the same thing happened.
This your friend?
Just please don't hurt him.
And why tase him to shoot him? Why wouldn't you just shoot him instead? That's like wiping your arse before taking a shit. Junior demands that BFF give him access to Zhang's restricted developments, to which BFF says,
I don't know what you are talking about.
And of course, if this film has taught me anything, it's that violence is always the answer. So he points a gun at his head. BFF obviously cracks. I mean, you've got to admire the loyalty to the company, but why is he so loyal? He means literally nothing to Zhang, so why should he be so protective? Oh right, yeah, film reasons. Doi. BFF tells Junior of a 5-year plan involving integrated tech, phones, computers, and self-driving cars, and Junior says,
Anything I can sell on the black market.
And I can't say that I've dabbled much in the black market, but I'm pretty sure that self-driving cars would be pretty low on their list of things to acquire. Meanwhile, in the back of a truck, Jules, Ray's PA or backup chick when Abigail dies, if Abigail dies, is communicating with 12 the age of consent back in LA or wherever, who says,
Deploying drone now.
What's with the typing? You don't launch a drone by typing shit. Why? Is it because it's supposed to look like some kind of high-tech hacker type stuff or what? Shen asks where Ray thinks they're holding the hostages, to which Ray replies,
I definitely called from the prison chap.
What the fuck does that have to do with Shen's question? He could have called whilst taking a shit behind a bush. Doesn't mean the hostages are embedded in his shit, does it? Ray then starts listing other places on the map, which is completely pointless, and doesn't answer the question at all. And then we get into another mess where ADHD meets 20 questions.
How big is this place?
What kind of shells are those?
Dragon's breath. You know what that is?
Plane number in this place to the ground.
Jeez, one at a time, man. And who cares about your dragon's balls shells? Jeez. 69 rate of descent then says,
Uplinking drone feed now.
And Jules starts doing some typing bullshittery at her end, and it just looks so bad. What's with all the typing in this film? Why do they never use a mouse? And if Jules is so proficient in this drone coding bollocks, why didn't she just launch a drone herself? It's like 3 meters away from her. They do some more planning and bitching, yada yada yada. Then Drax leaves because he works best alone. Such a dumb line. Junior then stares at Abigail for a while, and Big Blue tries to comfort him or motivate him or something, and he calls Abigail a bitch, which Junior takes offense to for some reason. I got nothing as to why it offends him. You can't be all, we don't call women bitches because it's demeaning, whilst having them strapped to an electric chair. It just makes no fucking sense. Big Blue says to kill her and just get the money, and it's kind of like they're trying to show that Junior's crumbling and his subordinates are sensing it, and we might see them try to overthrow him at some point, but nope, never happens. So yeah, waste of time really. Then we're back in the truck, and Shen asks,
What's with you and Lester's father?
Now, I find it hard to believe you've flown from LA to Latvia, a 12.5-hour flight, and you haven't even asked this yet. What the fuck were they doing on that plane? And supposedly, the reason he sold him out was $5 million. But earlier on, Lester Sr. says,
They have offered double your standard fee. That's $5 million, Ray.
So for a company that's raking in even $2.5 million per deal, which I assume they do several deals per year, and with Lester being pretty essential to the running of Breslin Security, or whatever it's called, Lester Sr. would have been making some fat stacks on his salary alone. I don't think $5 million would be enough of a reason to betray his once friend and business partner. So yeah, I'm calling bullshit on that one too. Bao then asks,
His father's connected to this too?
Again, ask on the fucking plane, not 2 minutes before you're about to assault a black site prison. Jeez. Everyone ignores him and they're all like, the fuck invited this guy? And then he goes,
A lot of fathers here.
and unless I'm being a fucking retard here and I can't count any higher than 2, there's 2 fathers, Lester Clark Sr. and Wu Zhang. Now, 2 ain't a lot.
Sorry, I'm just not getting it. It sounded like you said a lot of,
Fathers.
Never mind.
They do the all find the entry points with some shit effects or visuals or whatever you want to call them, and end up going with the shit pipes. Cliche much? Needless to say, Breslin's plebs trip some motion sensors alerting Junior to their presence. I mean, you'd think a security expert like Ray would have thought of something like that, but nope. Then Junior says we've got visitors too many times.
We got visitors. We got visitors. Yeah. We got visitors!
Ray enters the poo pipes with a super bright torch, even though there is lighting throughout, which in itself is super convenient. I mean, why are the sewage lights on? Did Ray put them on? If so, why the torch? And if he didn't and the lights are just on because reasons, why then did he still think he needed the torch? Whatever. Bao and Shen start making moves and speak with Ray, but Ray's "oh fuck we're busted" senses are tingling. Junior takes Daya to the balcony as bait, I guess. So dumb, man. You might as well give her a fucking hat with "Here I am, come get me, definitely not bait" written all over it. The fact that Junior thought for 1 minute that this might work is just beyond stupid. Shen and Bao spot Daya on the roof and are like, yeah, defo bait. And then Bao asks another dumb question.
你跟他之间到底有什么？你们在一起过吗？
This is dumb in so many ways. Why does Bao think Shen is even here? Why didn't he ask this on the 12.5-hour flight? He's portrayed as an acutely trained bodyguard whose job is basically to read the situation he's in and act accordingly, yet he's only now wondering whether Shen and Daya were a thing. Fuck, man. Shen ignores him anyway and starts saying teamwork makes the dream work, but Bao's all like, nah mate, me and Drax, we're lone wolves, we work alone. And Shen's like, fuck, better go with. Junior's asking Daya about some legend, which I don't think has any relevance whatsoever, so fucking next. Then, apparently it's showtime, and Big Blue starts blowing shit up and just gets kinda lucky with where he's blowing up? No idea. But anyway, Shen and Bao get a little bit blown up and taken by Junior's goons. Don't worry, they'll be fine. Junior thanks Bao for being a pawn in his operation, and then he tells them to choose who to kill. Daya or Abigail, and then even Junior, who's never met Shen before, can tell that there's something going on between him and Daya. Yes, Bao has never seen the pair in the same room before, but you'd pick up on those things whenever Daya came up in conversation, especially as some high-ranking bodyguard who also had 12 fucking hours to just fucking ask God. Junior then says,
I'd have more respect for you. You just sat him down in the chair, you explained to him what he did wrong, and then you put a bullet in his head.
I'm sorry.
why the fuck did Abigail apologise? I get she's scared, but this was kind of my point earlier. Being so heavily involved with Ray and his organisation that deals with some rather dark characters, why is Abigail so timid? If nothing else, you'd have thought Ray would prepare his staff for this kind of eventuality, even more so seeing as though he keeps effectively getting kidnapped, but whatever. I should also add here that Junior is now communicating with Ray through an earpiece that he took from Shen. Junior then shoots Bao twice, but apparently only one bullet hits, and then Ray grunts and starts running. Junior then tells Ray to check his phone. That's right, he's FaceTiming himself slitting Abigail's throat. Then Ray does his best angry, and then he smashes his phone. Not the best move considering how useful a phone could be in this kind of scenario, but I suppose his partner's dead, so I may allow some irrational thinking here. But now Big Blue's in the shit pipes too, and he hears Ray sloshing about because apparently stealth don't matter even though Ray thinks that they're onto him. And after a lot of spinning around and suspicious noises, the pair finally meet and have a really tense battle which leaves you wondering if Ray's gonna make it out alive. Not really. Ray makes Swiss cheese out of Big Blue like he was beating up a 5-year-old. I mean, Big Blue is meant to be some big bad black site prison officer experienced with dealing with the worst of the worst, and he doesn't even put up a fight. It's weird, and then for some reason Big Blue starts dribbling cum. Anyway, Ray finally emerges from the toilet and runs into a couple of Junior's guys which he dispatches of with ease, obviously. Shen and Daya are then escorted to their cells, and Shen tells Daya to fall down, which she rather unconvincingly does. The guards don't think that it's suspicious that he says something and then she immediately falls, because that would make sense, and as I'm sure you can appreciate by now, making sense isn't this film's strong point. Shen pockets a taser and they're taken to their cells. Not before Shen fucks about and gives Silver, I think his name is, a hard time and a cheeky wink as if to say, "Hey bro, saw you on Grindr, you want to eat my ass?" He eventually goes in, to his cell that is, and starts ripping flakes of something off the wall. Junior makes another call to the Wu Zhang clan and Wu's all like, "Nah, Shen told me not to." And then the cops are all like,
Answer the phone!
then Junior's all like,
Your father won't answer the phone.
and then we're back to Shen ripping more shit off the wall, and he starts a little fire to melt the cable ties off. Drax turns up at this point, I guess he just came through the front door, fucked if I know, and he starts loading shells into his shotgun. Now, I'd have thought it would have been better to load the shotgun before you entered the prison, and you could read into it and say, well, he might have taken out some guards on his way, but then Junior or another goon would have noticed, surely. I mean, we all know the real reason he's loading them now is because they're trying to make it look cool. Shen's fire still burns, Drax does some more walking and shell loading, and he sniffs one.
That's that good shit!
Because I suppose nothing helps him climax more than the smell of dragon's breath shells or some other macho bullshit. Shen's fire eventually gets going like a motherfucker, so the guards go and investigate by aimlessly just walking in there like the plebs that they are. Shen takes them out and steals the keys to the cells. Another prisoner also gets a hold of the keys from guard number 2. The rest of the guards finally turn up to sort shit out, and Shen's left twiddling with his cock as he struggles to find the keys to Daya's cell. He then frees her, but is quickly faced with a whole load of guards. He then puts his arm out in front of Daya to protect her. Hate to break it to you, Shen, but if the guards don't shoot directly at your arm, Daya's fucked. But anyway, Drax turns up just at the right moment to actually do something of use. He tells them, and then they take a long time to actually get down, more than enough time for the guards to shoot them and Drax, but yeah, they don't, and Drax murders them all with the dragon's breath shells, which they built up as if they'd be an important part of something, but they weren't. But I suppose, ooh, shiny shit? And not one of the guards fires back, despite having time to. Bow's back, great! Being led by some guards to fuck knows where, but lucky for him, there's a stampede of prisoners, so he's able to get away. So he limps away, and you just know he's going to turn up later to save the day. Or not. Maybe a sequel? I fucking hope not. After some orders are handed out by Junior, we get back to Drax, who's just strolling around pretty leisurely like he's just doing his weekly grocery shop. And then he walks into a guard who just for this brief part we'll call Harry Potter because he seems to live under the stairs, and of course a fight breaks out, and for once our protagonist in this scene actually takes a beating. And then we get the "you were only beating me because I had all the extra layers on" cliche, so he takes his hat off and the gun strap thing and he proceeds to get beat up some more, which was actually pretty good. It kind of showed for the first time that the guards weren't completely fucking inept, but they quickly undo this struggle when Drax just seems to think, nah, I'm done, and then just ends the fight super easily, and then you're just left thinking, what the fuck was that initial beating all about then if he could have ended the fight so easily? So Silver's been told to go and check up on BFF and his progress, and it seems BFF has pulled a funny on them. He hasn't been gaining access to whatever the fuck, and instead he's been making or found a revolving middle finger. That's classic BFF. Why is he so loyal, and does he really want to die this much? Just as Silver's about to put one in between BFF's eyes, Shen turns up and is all like, so macho man. And then they do fighting and shit. There's a lot of foreplay and a lot of whip whooshes. He does the bully move where he kicks his arm from under him like nerd, and then he does the grinder wink before sticking his knee through his head. And then Daya's all like, I think I just came. They then hug and go for a hike. Junior hides in a cell waiting for Ray, and then Ray finally shows up ready for the big finale. They finally clash on this row of cells, and neither of them can shoot for shit. It's a fucking straight line. How do they keep missing? There's some chat about why Junior killed Abigail, and Junior says, there's a bit more chit chat about revenge and payback and all that good stuff. Then Junior tickles Ray's angry buttons, and Ray charges Junior only to get shot in the face. Don't worry though, it's only his fucking face, jeez. Ray crawls into a cell and Junior follows, but then Junior gets the beating of a lifetime, and Ray gets all masculine saying shit like this.
Hit me for your father. You wanted me?
I got it, come on. You call that a fucking hit?
And then Ray starts telling Junior about his daddy issues, which is weird. And he takes Junior out to the balcony, or whatever it's called, and then he slits Junior's throat and pushes him over. He goes splat, and then Ray comes. Immediately after, Ray reunites with Shen, Daya and the BFF, and then I guess they all just fuck off back to LA, where we see the heartfelt reuniting of Wu and Daya. Except nope, because Daya now hates Daddy because I don't fucking know. She must have known that he was a dodgy prick before all of this, but apparently not maybe? And then Daya's all like, well Daddy, Shen's gonna take me home and we're gonna fuck like rabbits because it'll piss you off. I'll send you the vid later. Daya says,
你不介意吧？
介意啊，你真的挺麻烦的，不过我习惯。
Oh Shen, you smooth motherfucker. That made me moist and I'm just the viewer. She must be positively dripping. Some weird staring then takes place between Drax, Ray and Wu. I mean, we get it, just fucking kiss already, God. And then Drax tells Ray,
You gotta forgive yourself. Wasn't your fault.
so deep. Wow, this story is like a rancid onion. Just so many layers of disgusting bullshit. And then Ray wallows a bit, and then he says no more prisons. And then Drax says, what we're all thinking.
It's music to me.
Just as a final afterthought, and I guess to leave it open to a sequel, which hopefully fucking not, we see Bao being pathetic in the sewers, and to be fair to the guy, everyone's just abandoned him and literally left him in the shit. I just think that once Bao had carried out his importance as far as the plot line went, the story with regard to Bao just got really lazy. Like, really, really lazy. Once he'd done his bit for the film, it was just, oh, keep him in it, we might be able to milk him for a sequel or some shit, but don't put too much effort into it. And that was Escape Plan, The Extractors. Pretty shit with a ton of plot holes, nonsensical bollocks, and some pretty unconvincing performances, but what the fuck would I know? Anyway, yeah, see you next time.